Good.
Okay, welcome everybody. Here we are, our usual time, usual place, Sunday nights with Global Strangeness, where we have a group of complete strangers getting together to chat about our love of everything creepy. So it's myself, Debra, Scott. We have our regular host who's away for a few weeks, Jeremy, and in his place we have not competition. Maybe we'll have to give him the boot. No, just joking. We do want you back, Jeremy. Looking forward to it. But we do have joining us is Michael with the Haunted Peninsula and Bruce with Bruce Tombstone. So if you guys want to give a shout out to your links and tell us a little bit about yourselves. I know it's your second week, but for the new listeners, tell us where you're at and what you do, what you're all about.
Michael, go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Bruce. Yeah, hi, this is Michael. I run a Facebook page called the Haunted Peninsula. I do a lot of photography, so I like to integrate my photographic work into topics, ranging from haunted places to ancient aliens. So I look forward to the discussion tonight, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming. I'm still trying to send everything, so I'll be out of the loop for a minute.
Okay, Bruce, you're up. Who are you? What are you about?
My name is Bruce Burnett, and I work for the city of Tombstone, Arizona, arguably one of the most haunted towns in the United States. I'm one of the driving forces behind the Tombstone Wild West Paracon, which we'll be having our second event coming up here April 28th through 30th. You can see that at tombstoneparacon.com. There's also a Facebook page for Tombstone Paracon. And I also do a lot of haunted tombstone type of posts on Discover Tombstone, which is also a website and a Facebook page as well, and an Instagram and what do we call it now? It's an X. It's not Twitter anymore. It's X. So we've got that there as well.
Nice. Good stuff. Good stuff. So that being said, welcome everybody, and we'll dive right in. This week we all decided that we were going to talk about ancient aliens. So everybody knows aliens have been in the news lately. A lot more people are taking them more seriously. Of the government throwing out little scraps of fun tidbits for whatever their purposes are. Not entirely sure I'm never sure that we're getting the whole story from the government. However, it does bring up the topic with a lot of people, so it's kind of fun. So we wanted to talk a little bit about, aliens, supposedly they've been around longer than humans possibly, and there's been sightings from, the beginning of time. There's, in the ancient artifacts that are found, there are carvings with alien looking forms. So with that being said, I thought I would dive into this from the angle of there must be little things left behind, right? I mean, if they've been coming to the planet, somebody's going to have dropped a necklace or crashed something, and a piece of a UFO or craft would be left behind. So I just took a little quick dive into artifacts that have been found that are supposedly possibly alien. And so I guess the most famous one everybody's probably seen and heard of is the Roswell Rock. So Scott, do you want to bring up the picture of the Roswell Rock? So have you guys seen this before?
I don't know.
There's lots of replicas, but the original one, so it's not very big, but that's got perfect carvings on it. And these carvings, in particular, there have been many crop circles in the UK with that exact symbols on them. So I guess it was found in 2004, and it's believed by believers to be directly linked to the famous Roswell UFO incident back in 1947. And so this thing was actually found in about 25 miles from the Roswell crash site, but the smooth stone captured worldwide attention mostly because it's magnetic. So the rock itself is magnetic, and it's got perfect astronomical markings on one side of it. So This is probably a replica. There's like a million replicas of this now. You can buy them in little, gift shops or whatever. But the original one is like perfect precision markings on it. And it's what shows to be a couple of crescent moons and some stars or planets. And it's the same symbol, like I was saying, that has appeared in previous crop circles in the UK. And there's various claims of other rocks or objects found with, the same or similar design etched into them. So it's not the only one that's ever been found in the world. There's been others that are similar and they have that same symbol on them. And so a lot of people think this is a hoax. Lots of, like I said, you can buy them in gift shops and whatever now. So maybe it's a marketing thing. I mean, why wouldn't you? If you're well known for a crash site like Roswell is, I would be marketing the heck out of t-shirts and stuff like that. But
and they do, believe me.
Yeah, right. But some people, they think that's the smoking gun. Like that thing is magnetic. It's weirdly precise. I don't know. So
And Jeremy will be back eventually, fellas. You would buy into that hook, line, and sinker.
Roswell is about as far a drive from where I am as maybe Phoenix is. So it's not that far, really.
Have you been?
I have not been yet. I do plan to go, but they have a thriving industry there on alien stuff of every kind you can think of. Not just stuff regarding Roswell, but every type of trinket you could buy, different supposed artifacts from things. And it's a little cottage industry over there for sure.
They need to use some of that tax dollars to fix their roads because their freeway sucks ass, dude. I hate New Mexico's freeway.
It's not as bad as LA. I'll tell you what, I went to LA a couple of weeks ago. And once I got past the border, when I passed like Indio, the freeway was just wrecked all the way into the San Gabriel Valley. It was incredibly bad. And we're out here in the Tombstone area, Cochise County. They'll go to do a road and they'll start work on it. And like 2 days later, 30 miles of it is done, and I'm just not used to that. LA, they were working on something when I moved out here, and 6 years later, it's still not done. So it's crazy.
We have a bridge like that every year. This bridge is being worked on. Like it's the never ending project. So I don't know. So anyways, well, the next one I wanted to talk about it's another little item. It's actually kind of interesting. So it's the wedge of Aoud, and I don't know if I'm saying that wrong. So if you guys do know how to say it correctly, let me know. But this thing was found in Romania in 1974, and it was buried really close to some Macedon bones. And because Macedon went extinct around 11,000 years ago, they dated it to be just as old because it was as deep as the bones were. So they originally thought that must be the age of this as well. Like it would be the same, around the same age. But the age didn't make a whole lot of sense because it was also mostly found to be made of mostly aluminum. And we only developed aluminum in the 1820s. And that's long, long after that, right? After the Macedons had died off. So then the general consensus was that
Long after.
Right. So then the consensus was it was just dated wrong to begin with. And it's, just a piece of modern history rather than ancient times. But then the question is, why is it buried so far beneath the ground that it appears alongside those, millennia old bones? So a lot of people think this is actually alien technology or a piece of alien, proof of alien stuff. So
it kind of looks like a seatbelt clicker, like an old school
for a craft.
Loaded in seatbelt clicker.
It's a seatbelt clicker for a UFO.
There we go. Safety first.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
what our podcast promotes.
I mean, apparently they crash like they do in Roswell. So they're like, we need to put some seatbelts in these.
Yeah.
Well, and it was interesting. This wasn't the only metallic thing that's been found that doesn't make sense. Like there was something I can't remember. It was in King Tut's. There's a dagger or something that had metal that they shouldn't have had buried with him. So
Right.
there's been a lot of objects that don't make sense because of the materials, and that's where it comes in right away. Then it must be of alien origin because we didn't have use of that yet, kind of thing. So I thought it was kind of interesting, anyways. And then from far eastern Russia to South America, there was so-called golden airplanes that were discovered. I don't have a picture of that, and I don't know. Has anybody heard of these? The golden airplanes?
Yes.
So
I've
it
heard
was
of golden airplanes from Egypt, but not from Russia. I don't know. I'm not even sure it was,
well
I'm
from
not even sure
Russia,
it was
yeah.
Egypt. I'm not even sure it was Egypt now that I think of it.
Well,
But
so
there were some things that looked like airplanes, and they made a scale model out of it and put it in a wind tunnel. And at the right size, it would definitely have the properties to be able to fly, which was interesting. So,
well, in this article, they're talking about it's part of the Quimbaya Artifacts Hall, which was found in Colombia, and it was dating back around 1,000 years. And most of these artifacts are small models depicting everyday things like animals and people and birds,
right.
but a few of them, so it's kind of like carvings of things, but a few of them have seemingly airplane-like machines, which leads ancient alien theorists to claim that civilization must have had one time encountered an extraterrestrial ship, because how else would they know about, these
Right.
designs? I sort of have a theory, though, with a lot of this. Like, what if the civilizations were just that much, more advanced than we ever think? Like the
I
people
kind of believe
themselves.
that.
Yeah, and I know like that whole show, Ancient Aliens. What's that guy's name? He's
Graham
been really.
Hancock and
There was.
oh no,
Giorgio.
ancient aliens is different.
Georgia.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not saying it was
they've been
aliens, but it was
criticized.
aliens.
They've been criticized quite heavily for people kind of come at them with a little bit of hate for sort of for racial reasons. Like they think they come in and they're like, oh, the people, these ancient civilizations, they couldn't have possibly built these things, so it must be aliens. And so they catch some heat for that. And I kind of think that too, like not the racial part, but just I think maybe people were more advanced than we even think. It doesn't necessarily have to be that the aliens were doing it. Maybe people were that much more advanced and then somehow lost all their knowledge, got taken over by religions and governments and all these controlling factors.
Well, how
And we kind
fast
of went
would we
backwards a
lose
little
it?
bit.
I mean, we would lose our technology super quick, dude. I don't know
Right?
how to build a computer. Do either of you guys know how to get an internet up and running? And a
I-
power
actually, I do.
system and like,
Right.
and then all the people that can do it, it's like they're gonna get smoked out pretty quick.
That's very true. The amount of digital information at some point is all going to be gone. It's not like physical manifestations of things. It's all digital representations. So I'm right there with you on that.
Yeah, I think they probably moved like the pyramids and shit where they say that they moved it with like sound frequencies and stuff. And they just like came at technology in a totally different way. I think that's 100% possible.
Right. Yeah. Although so I believe in aliens too, but I also, some of it, I don't think every amazing feat that's ever been done is like, oh, it's got to be aliens, can't be humans. I don't know. I think we might not be the smartest humans, and that's the trouble, is we want to think we right now are the smartest, most advanced, and perhaps not. Perhaps our ancestors had it going on too. So
Well, were they
anyways.
podcasting on Sunday nights?
Well, no,
Just
they're not
saying.
that good. Come on.
They might have been
one's-
smarter, but they were squares.
Right?
So, and then I guess you've heard it makes sense for a lot of people. Alien artifacts only get really worthy of attention if there's biological matter involved. So, of course, kind of changes everything, right? Once you have some living material. And so the most famous example of this came via, okay, I'm gonna butcher this, but the Polonararu meteorite.
Do you have a picture of this? I've got one more picture for you.
I put the name on, I don't remember what I
This
said.
is, I got the tooth.
Oh, no, that's
Okay,
something
okay.
different. So anyways, this is a space rock which fell in Sri Lanka on December 2012. And according to astrobiologist Chandra Wickramasinghe, who recovered this meteorite, it carried inside inside of it was a fossilized and living microorganisms known as diatoms. And so that's kind of, that changes things, that there's something living inside this meteorite, right? Even like little tiny, you know, proof of light from outer space. And they, once again, it wasn't, you know, the scientific community always rallies kind of against this stuff. It wasn't really hugely supported. And they've been really criticized, like all scientists who come forth with alien stuff, always it does get criticized. But anyways, the main argument against them is that the biological material is too remarkably similar to what's already common on Earth, leading that, you know, other scientists to just say, well, it's either just a space rock contaminated with water from this planet, or it's just a straight up lie, and they just think that lie and they made it up and found a rock and said it was a meteorite, but it's not at all. So I don't know. So
That's
yeah, I don't
interesting.
know.
Though.
Yeah, I mean, it is. What do you think? Like, do you think that some of these artifacts are actually, you know, in fact, things that are of alien origin, or do you think?
I would
know,
have to look in a
best?
hell of a lot more, dude. Like,
I did see the Ancient Aliens episode where they talked about that shovel-like object that you have a picture of.
Yes,
And
the wedge.
it's a fairly substantial size. And to me, I just can't help when I see that. It looks very much like a tooth from a backhoe. If you've ever seen
mhm.
backhoe, they've got these teeth on it in front of the bucket used to scrape out the dirt. That said, you know, the chemical composition is not really what you would find in industrial machinery. They really
Not at all.
just the way it looks though is strange. I've also seen those golden airplanes, as you call them. It's intriguing, but could it simply been a replica of a bird?
Yeah.
You could. That's a skeptic in me. It could. It definitely could. I kind of go along more of the theory of, well, I'm not against alien thought processes really at all. The fact that we talked about, you know, the fact that there could have been civilizations in the past that did themselves in the way we could possibly do ourselves in. The only thing that I have with it being advanced other earlier civilizations is I would think that we would find dramatically more material available technology wise, or things that, you know, that are made out of metal and things like that that would hold up longer, as opposed to, you know, the occasional rock with some stuff on it, or, you know, things like that. It seems like, I don't know, have you guys ever seen a show? It was called After People or something. They'd show like New York City and they'd say after people, and they'd say 5 years and stuff would be starting to grow in on the streets. Yes. And then in 10 years and 20 years and in 100 years, it just looked like a jungle, much the way things in South America are.
Well, like it's that old George Carlin bit, right? Maybe the Earth made us because it wants all the styrofoam for itself. The only thing that's going to be around at the end of the day.
That's true. You got to love Carlin.
Absolutely.
I got one more for you. Maybe this will be the convincing one. So there was been what was called the UFO tooth wheel. So there's a picture of this guy. And it's a piece of aluminum but it was embedded in a 300 million-year-old lump of coal in Vladivostok, Russia in 2013. So
Interesting.
that's pretty interesting, right? Like it's because you can date the lump of coal around it. So, and again, aluminum, you shouldn't have it, right?
Right.
And,
What's the description of it? It's a piece of aluminum embedded in coal.
yeah.
I
And
think we should start fucking with the future civilizations and just like putting shit like this in coal and
Absolutely.
animal skeletons and all sorts of weird stuff.
like a time capsule, bury it
Yeah.
really, really deep where it shouldn't be.
Absolutely. Yeah, just to be funny.
Yeah, just get a backhoe and dig it down like, 150 feet and then put something down there, bury it all up again.
Just to mess with them. Maybe that's what this is. So the validity of this always, like every single thing that's ever been found, it gets called into question. But it is kind of interesting that it's encased in that, in prehistoric rock formation like that. How it got there, I don't know. So did that one make you? Is that the
I'm
one
sold.
that sold you on it?
100%.
Good.
That and frogmen. I am like
That okay.
bought in.
Frogmen exist,
I absolutely.
but they're all in the Navy.
All right. Well, that's it for my compelling cases to convince the masses. So.
Well, I'll take the ass end, and I've got a couple two videos, so I'll play them in between. Which one of you guys is going next?
Go ahead, Michael.
Okay.
I went first last time. You can go first this time.
Boom,
Okay.
there we go. Okay, so I got one video and then I'll play another video in between you two. So this is the, do you want to watch people describing an alien first, or what people think about aliens seeding life?
Ooh. Either one. I'm good either way.
Let's hear their descriptions. That's interesting. What people think they look like.
Well, no, it's not. It's got to be a TikTok video, dude. It's like under a minute.
One of them will probably look like Orson Welles.
Okay, sharing screen now. What do we got? Oop, wrong one. Boom.
What do you think the possibility that aliens engineered the human race is?
We may, in fact, all be aliens.
I've never thought about it. I guess it's possible.
Not very, just because of the vast distances.
Oh, I think it's definitely a high likelihood.
No.
Zero chance.
Zero.
Definitely possible. We didn't just pop up out of nowhere.
There's at least a higher being that's better than us that did.
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
I think it's very possible.
There's no way that it couldn't be true.
It's a good possibility still.
I wouldn't chalk it down to be not possible.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know enough about it, to be honest.
I don't know about the likelihood, but I guess that's as good as any, theory.
So what do you guys think? Aliens genetically modify us or what?
Well, if you look at humanity relative to other animals on the planet, we're obviously quite different. Obviously, other animals can communicate, but we're largely incapable of living out in the wild. We just don't have the bodies for it. We don't have the hair for it. We obviously are very adept at modifying the world to meet an incredible array of needs: information technology, transportation, lighting. Oh, you don't see this in the animal kingdom. Of course, birds create nests and raccoons create burrows or whatever, but the scale of the way humans change the world is so different from any other being on this planet. Is that completely accidental?
Absolutely. We came from primordial slime, dude. This all happened.
I mean,
Well, there's also, oh, go ahead, Michael.
no, I mean, the last thought on that is, if you look at a universe in a sea of infinite number of universes, well, any of this could be true. We could be the seed of aliens. Or we just randomly evolved into something very unique on this rock spinning around a burning rock. It's very possible.
Well, and to piggyback on what Michael just said, because I think it's got an interesting section to it, is that we know at the way that our technology is right now, for us to go to another planet, it's a zillion light years to get there. And when we look at how much technology we've put together, where that technology came from is a discussion in itself. It could be backward engineered alien crap for all we know. But if we look at the dramatic advances in technology that we've done, imagine when we have the ability to go millions of light years in some kind of craft, what kind of technology would we have? Could we be able to create out of nothing, different types of life and things? I think that we're currently doing some kinds of things like that. You always hear about these things like, oh, scientists are putting together, I don't know why they would do this. It reminds me of Jurassic Park, but they're like, oh, they're going to bring back this saber-toothed tiger. And I'm like, but why? Why do you want to do that? I don't know. And, as much technology as we have, we're definitely not the sharpest pencils in the box in the universe. I'm pretty sure of that. There's billions and billions of planets. There's probably millions of possibly life-sustaining planets. Out of those, there's probably hundreds of thousands of advanced civilizations that are probably more civilized or more technologically advanced than we are. So to say, did we come from that? Quite possibly.
Well,
I always find it interesting too when they talk about, especially right now, people are talking about when they first, the government or whatever, when they're seeing craft and they're like shooting at them. And I'm thinking, but they're obviously, if they wanted to take us out, if they have, if they have the capabilities that they're saying they do, why are we trying to start fighting with them? We're obviously at a disadvantage. So that's really weird to me that that's human nature.
Well, you guys remember Stephen Hawking, right? He's the scientist who was a quadriplegic, or I can't remember exactly what had happened to him, but he was confined to a wheelchair. And he, when Viking went out and it had the gold CD and it had all this stuff and it had pictures of humans and different data on it that would show exactly where they were. And he was like, in my opinion, that's an incredibly bad idea. He goes, because anyone that could get here, he goes, it would be worse than the Spanish invading the New World. He goes, we don't know if they'd be nice. We don't know if they'd be bad. We don't know if they'd bring diseases. He's like, to them, we might be ants on the ground to be stepped on. And I thought, then there's something to that. It's like, he's like, why are we advertising where we're at? Because we don't know the intentions of anything, if anything, would come here.
Well, why would they crash, right? These things are so technologically advanced. Why would they crash? How did we retrieve biologics? That's my big question.
So do you
and
think
why
maybe
wouldn't
it's a
they
test?
just like hold a gun to our face and say, hey, we want those fucking biologics back?
But the thing is, I think we're aggressive. I don't think they're aggressive. I think that's a human thing to like want to be the people with the biggest guns and the fastest ships and back engineering stuff. Have like that's the way humans think. I think aliens are more advanced and they're not like so aggressive like we are. And I think sometimes maybe that when they crash or they have somebody come here, it's like a test to see how do we treat them, how do we react. Do they even know us? Because they probably don't want to know us. They probably lock the doors as they go past Earth because we're the ghetto.
we tend to package them up and put them in the lab for testing. They're probably like, oh, these guys suck.
That's exactly like when you're hearing about what the government is supposed, if it's true, what they're doing with, aliens that they have, like, it's terrible. It's like, what are we doing?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if they'd let us get away with it, dude. Even if they are passive, everybody has a breaking point. Like,
Yeah, well, maybe it's coming though.
yeah,
Well, you know what?
maybe.
It's always the possibility if you look at it like you just look at different countries on Earth, they all react to things differently. Everyone talks about aliens like it's just one kind from one place, which is not necessarily the thing either. They could be from 30 different star systems or something, and some of them are, just watch some old episodes of Star Trek. Vulcans were cool. Romulans were not.
Yeah.
For all you Trekkie fans out there.
I think what's interesting about that, Bruce, is our understanding of the technology is very linear, right? We always think about, okay, we're going to get in a car and drive down the highway and go down to that place. But I think when you're looking at the ancient alien theory, you kind of have to suspend your understanding or our understanding of the physical world. Because the only way that these things would work is if the way the world works, the way the universe works, the way physics works is well beyond our understanding.
Right. No, agreed.
The whole idea of, getting in a vehicle and traveling the speed of light from one place to another, there's got to be a loophole. And these things have been referred to as wormholes, right? So
Right.
these ways of getting instantaneously from one far off place to another. The other idea, and you've seen this, is the idea that ancient aliens have hitched rides on cosmic debris. Right? We had a big oblong shaped that looked like the meteorite or something coming through the solar system. And there was some speculation that this thing was actually coming from another place. And this thing could, in fact, be a transport vehicle for aliens.
Was this the thing back in like 2020, 2021?
Yes, I think it was a Hawaiian name. I'm not going to try it because I'll butcher it. Idea is maybe the only way to get across such vast distances is to use what's already there. Zacharias Sitchin had an idea of the 10th planet, right? This planet.
Nibiru.
Yeah. The Anunnaki are on this planet, and when it comes close enough to Earth, they take their spaceships and whatnot and come to Earth, interact with humans. In fact, the whole idea there was that they created humans as a race of workers to mine gold. It's an absolutely ridiculous theory, but
they needed it for their atmosphere. Come on now. The Babylonian religion has pictures of little monkeys sitting on God's laps. Makes sense.
But
to a point.
So one of the things I wanted to bring to the table is when we're talking about ancient aliens, I think we have to separate out three things, right? We have a creation story, we have magic, and we have unexplainable feats. So from a creation point of view, isn't the ancient alien theory simply a modern creation tale? Right? These beings from another planet came and grabbed DNA that was present on Earth, modified it, and created this super race of animals called humans.
Absolutely, yeah.
The other thing, these are differentiating categories. Magic, right? We have these magical events. We have turning water to wine. We have different things that have happened that can't be explained through the world as we know it. And then the third thing is unexplainable feats. And those things are principally architectural oddities. You find these everywhere. The pyramids. They said it took 20 years. Do the math. How long would it take to mine and place 2 million stones? You see these massive stones in Machu Picchu, incredibly enormous stones. And no disrespect to the indigenous people of the area, but it's highly unlikely that humans are there, because even with the technology we have, we couldn't do it. I'm sure you've seen many videos of massive cranes trying to put a ship in place or a rock in place, and things fail catastrophically and everything falls down. But some of these things are not even close to the weight of the stones we're talking about. So when we're talking about ancient aliens, what are we looking for it to answer? Are we looking for it to answer a creation question, a question of magic, or a question of unexplainable feats?
Well, and to that point that you just made, you look at don't want to get all Marvel-like for a second, but what did Thor say? Thor says, well, what we call magic, you guys call technology.
Right.
Well, I think
the things you don't think are possible to be done can be done.
And you left one off the table, and
Okay.
that is simulation theory.
Oh, yeah. The Matrix, baby.
Possible.
Okay. Exactly. That's really interesting. So toward that end, I mean, we can go through some of these parallels like I've talked about. When we look at, say, the story of Adam and Eve, right? I'm not promulgating a religious point of view here. I'm simply referring to a story we all know. What happened? Some knowledge was imparted, right? Knowledge was imparted. How was it imparted? Some crazy ass snake in an apple. But when we talk about ancient aliens, you can watch Giorgio on the show Ancient Aliens and see what they talk about. Many times they're talking about imparting knowledge to humanity. These aliens have imparted a very advanced knowledge. Now we're building spaceships. 100 years ago, we were pulling carts through the street behind horses, right? And then 100 years later, we're on the moon. How did this happen?
Debated. The moon thing is debated. We'll get into that later on more shows.
I did get in a jet, and I did go from here to San Diego in, less than a year of travel by, cart across the country, right? So one of the theories of ancient aliens and the theory of religion is that advanced beings imparted knowledge. And if you think about, we'll just look at the Abrahamic God, right? And that's the God of Christian Jews and Muslims. By definition, isn't that God an extraterrestrial?
Fourth dimensional being?
I mean, don't look at the drawings, the paintings in the Sistine Chapel, right? This being, this God, lives in the heavens. Isn't by definition that an extraterrestrial?
Yeah.
So, we can talk about that. We can talk about, again, like you said, creation myths. We can look at the Old Testament, the Torah, what happens there. Talks about 7 days, the earth was created. We look at someone like Zecharia Sitchin talking about the Anunnaki, doing genetic engineering on monkeys and creating a super race of animal on the planet. So I guess what I wanted to bring to the table is if we kind of look at Ancient Aliens as a sci-fi version of, you know, old religion stories about the evolution of humanity and miracles and technology.
Well, that makes a lot of sense when you talk to any, you know, musicians or anybody, great inventors, whoever. They often talk about almost channeling, like information comes to them, or they go to sleep, or they do actual meditations, and that's where the ideas come from, and they're not even sure how it works at first. So yeah, that really speaks to like whether it's, you know, a spiritual being, or if it's like maybe it's all aliens that we are you know, telepathically connected to when you know, are open to it. And some people are more open than others, and they bring the information down, and that's how we advance ourselves. But it's really information being fed to us.
There's an awful lot of civilizations on the planet too that have, you know, sky people backgrounds. They talk about that their ancestors came from the skies, and it's like dozens and dozens of cultures. The Maori in New Zealand believe it, and Australia, and you know, Native American Indians all have star people that came down, and it's just a kind of a different way to look at things. You know, I mean, a lot of people have the Judeo-Christian look at it, but you know, like I mentioned last week, these guys flew into the middle of the Congo in a Cessna, and they'd never seen people like them before. And when they went back a year later, these guys had built a Cessna out of sticks and were praying to it, because these guys were obviously gods. They flew here.
Well, these are all just words too, right? Like angel and alien. It
could all be the same thing.
Yeah, God, creator, the coder that made our world. Like when you look into there's a great YouTube channel, Hochelaga, and he does like depictions of the actual alien or angels from the Old Testament. And it's like a ring of eyeballs, like a spherical, ever-changing ring of eyeballs, and like four-headed.
They're not good looking.
Yeah,
they're not very angel-like with the way most people think of angels.
Nothing like the pictures. Every angel, well, most angels ever depicted in the Bible. It's like pretty crazy stuff.
I think they're capable of showing up however they want to present too. So if somebody resonates with angels, that's what will show up. If somebody resonates with an alien type looking thing, that's what, like, I think it's whatever you're most open to is how this consciousness will show up to you.
Right.
The only thing out of all the stuff, I'm open to it all. I actually do believe we probably spent time on, as you know, in the stars or star seeds ourselves, and then came to Earth. But the only one that really ticks me off is if this is a simulation and there's some 14-year-old pimply nerdy kid that's controlling us like a video game and laughing right now, and
he's playing the
Sims. Deborah, that is exactly what this is.
It's a guy playing The Sims.
Right.
Okay, I'm good, Bruce. Thank you.
Well, I got all your pictures, dude. You gotta tell me when you want those pictures up.
Yeah, I want to make sure that Bruce has time, so that we can look at those next time. They weren't.
Well, I got them right here. So the first one I got.
Let's do the one of the Madonna and Child surrounded by stars.
Okay, so you'll find out I label these things the way I label them. I have B, 2 crosses, B, Jesus, B, sun and moon, B, tomb and guy's foot, B, tomb diagram.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Debra finally learned this week to like give me the names of her pictures.
I put names on mine.
I did not see those. Yours are just as bad. So just
kind of. Yeah.
So which one would be that? What you're looking for?
Oh, it was the first one I sent, and it was, you know, the statue. It's black and white.
That was,
Kind of crazy.
or no. I'm thinking of Bruce's. So I've got M Angel, M House, M King, M Lady, and Temple.
Oh, so it must be the first one.
M Angel. There we go. Okay. Well, at least Bruce knows what he's getting into now. I hope you remembered all that rundown.
So I took this in a cathedral in Quebec. So, I mean, what do we have here? We have a divine entity emerging from fire or smoke or a star. You can see a star image, brightness, intense light. You can see smoke or fire or fog, this divine being emanating from burning light. Well, when we talk about aliens, don't we use the same language? Right?
Who's on her shoulder? I didn't even notice that.
So this is a depiction of the Virgin Mary holding baby Jesus. This is Catholic symbology from a Catholic cathedral in very Catholic Quebec.
Was this taken in film or digital? Because originally I thought this was like a pop art thing, but when you zoom in, you can see the detail.
Digital photography. I obviously changed the tonality of it. So I guess the other one, we can just grab whatever one's next.
Okay, let's see. We got M. Well, the house was the last one you sent me. I remember that.
Let's skip the house one.
I'll try the king or lady and temple.
Let's do the king. See what one this is. Okay, so this is really interesting, right? Now we're talking about magic. I did not take this photograph. This is not my work. Does anybody recognize this? This is called the Shroud of Turin. And this miracle is pretty much indistinguishable from magic. Because the technology used to make this is still not fully understood. So when we look at magic, when you look at divinity, then again, we can draw parallels between this artifact and, things that we would discuss regarding ancient aliens or, spaceships. Artifacts like the stone that you showed earlier, Deborah, things that cannot be explained. In this case, we know that it was created by the Renaissance era artists. We don't know how they did it, but it's magic, right? And the magic that we see here is also magic that we find when we talk about extraterrestrial visitors, right? That spaceships pop in and out of existence. They're faster than anything we've ever seen. They go under the water, they go through the sky, they disappear, right? It's magic. So we have a penchant for being drawn toward the magical. Anyway, I will stop there because I really want to hear what Bruce has to say. Sorry for taking so much time.
No worries.
Dude, you're absolute. Sometimes we go way longer than we should.
I was going to say, my experience in podcasting is occasionally have a show that's an hour, and then you got shows that go. It's like the show that never ends. Yeah.
Wait till we have a bracket. That's going to be a jumble-eyed mess of 3 hours. Are you sure you don't want to show any more of your pictures?
Well, okay. If it's okay with Bruce.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
We got the house and the lady in the temple. I think, yeah, that should be
Because I don't
right.
know what that is.
Or no, the lady in the temple I already did, so. House, I guess, right? That's the only other one? Is that the one you wanted to do?
Yep, that sounds fine.
Okay, cool. Share screen. Yeah, it looks like I only got 3 M's.
Okay.
Ah, Jesus. That
No,
was
that
my
was-
bad, everybody.
That was it. So this is a replica of the stave. The stave is a Norwegian church, all made out of wood. This one happens to be not far from Fargo. If anybody's familiar with Fargo,
I'm not. Looks
Oh.
pretty as hell.
that's very interesting. How does this relate to ancient aliens? That's a good question. I'm not quite sure. But the idea is that we have these fantastical architectural constructions. This one being made out of woods. I think the one in Norway is 800 years old. Then there was some death metal guy that burned one of them down, whatever. But,
Really?
when you look at somebody like Randall Carlson, I would encourage you to look at some of his podcasts. And he talks about a couple things that really are factors in but what we were talking about earlier in the show. There have been about 7,000 generations of humans that resemble what we are today. And throughout those 7,000 generations, 250,000 years, we have to consider the changes in climate, the effect of asteroids, and that's no joke because twice a year, our planet transitions through a massive field of rocks.
I thought it was only October. What's the other time of the year?
Well, I think it's in June.
Okay.
But twice a year, we go through this massive field of debris. It takes 10, 12, 11 days, whatever, to get through it. These are some of the hidden hands of human history. Well, we just don't know the effect that climate has had on whatever artifacts remain today. And I think it's very interesting. This is made out of wood. Definitely going back to what Bruce talked about, the show, what happens when there are no more humans, this will go away pretty quickly. But if you look at the ancient artifacts that remain today, they're made out of earth stuff, right? They're made out of stone. They're not going anywhere. They may be eroded and they may be damaged deliberately or just by accident over time. But we have those artifacts. We can't explain all of them. We still can't explain the pyramids, and there are other artifacts that we can't explain. But those are made out of a material that, are as old as the earth itself. So when we talk about, 7,000 generations from now, will anything we have remain? If anything does remain, it'll most likely be made out of stone. And some of the grand buildings that were built in the 18 and 1900s, maybe those will remain. But I don't know much else will.
Doesn't that kind of piss you off? Like if I was Donald Trump or Elon Musk or, any one of these billionaires, like why not build your tower out of stone? We do know this. We know that all of this crap's going to be gone, right? Like, so if you're this super wealthy, famous person that wants to like make a mark on the world, why have we not created a new pyramid or something?
Okay, the last picture, and that'll shut me up for sure. And that'll answer your question.
Hold on a sec. I had
Because they don't have any aliens to help them build it.
King. Oh, is it the angel? Angel.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 4. I got you.
This will tangentially, no, that wasn't it. It was
Yeah,
the-
that was the one we already looked at.
This will tangentially answer the question, but it only, like I said, indirectly.
Ladian Temple.
Yes.
We'll try that one.
And so what we have here is simply a monument, right? If you look at the background that I'm displaying here on the Zoom call, what do we have? We have monuments made out of stone to dead people. That's what we're going to have. That's what people will make. And if you go to some of the beautiful cemeteries in Charleston or even in Pittsburgh, people have burial mosques made out of stone that look like pyramids. Those are the things that will remain.
You know how old this is? Because you're right. I never even thought about that. But a lot
So
of
that's
the
in Ireland, and unfortunately, the picture I sent you is some crazy project I was working on. If you back out a little bit, it's an overlay of goat's head onto this picture. I was trying to work on something. This isn't the picture I intended to upload, but it's an eye of a goat right there. It's very strange. Anyway.
a lot of our tombstones, though, they are made of like granite and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I never thought about that.
that will continue. I'm not sure because people will have changing ideas about death and dying. But back in the industrial age, the richest guy had the biggest mausoleum. Maybe it looked like a small, house or a pyramid. I'm not sure we'll be doing that in the future. I don't think it'll be affordable, and I don't think people are interested. But this is your question. Why don't they do that? Well, they will. There'll be a grand tombstone to all of these people.
Funny fact about myself, I went and got a whole bunch of countertop cutouts.
Right.
And am going to start carving the entire Hobbit and Lord of the Rings into these countertop cutouts. So then, like, if people find that in the day and decipher that, they think the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings is like God. I mean, that would be amazing, dude. Like, now we have Jesus, but they'll have that story is amazing.
Yeah,
the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. Imagine if that's your God.
They're going to be like, they had their Lord and Master Gandalf the Grey, and became Gandalf the White.
Yeah.
And they threw the evil into Mordor.
That's right.
Happy ending. Look at that. And then all the dwarves and elves died for some reason. We don't know why that happened, but
I actually worked on an animated feature done by Ralph Bakshi back in the day that was animated Lord of the Rings.
I watched that cartoon, man. That would be awesome. I wish I could say that.
Do you ever remember a movie called Heavy Metal?
Oh, I just saw I never saw it, but I saw a YouTube video talking about it.
Yeah, there was Heavy Metal, and then there was Heavy Metal 2000. The first one came out in the 80s, and I did a lot of work on that one. Got an Academy Award for animation, actually.
That's bad.
I didn't get an Academy Award, but they did.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'd take a fucking shirt that said I fucking made this movie.
Right? Right? Oh, I have a very storied history, believe me, of all kinds of weird and crazy things.
Mine too, but none of them are notable.
Or legal.
Yeah.
Most of mine aren't legal. Actually. Well, I told you guys, you said one thing about, some thing you had where, you take a shot or something, you take a drink of something. I'm like, I will have to do my obligatory 12 ounces of Coke.
Me too.
But back in the day, I've been known to do a half an ounce of Coke, and I've been sober a long time now, though, so we don't worry about that now. But back in the day.
Well,
So,
before
you want to go
Bruce
next? Or you
goes,
want me to go?
no, I'm taking up the ass end, but I did have one more funny video. Well, this one's actually
Okay.
funny. This
That's
is,
right. You said that.
Let me just make sure this is pulled up. So I found a news clip about aliens.
Well, just in time for St. Patrick's Day, crowds are coming by the dozens to get an up-close view at what some say is a piece of Irish folklore.
Some people in the Crichton area of Mobile say a leprechaun has taken up
Ah, I've seen this.
A leprechaun.
Alabama.
NBC 15's Brian Johnson has more.
Curiosity leads to large crowds in Mobile's Crichton community. Many of you bringing binoculars, camcorders, even camera phones to take pictures.
To me, it look like a leprechaun to me. All you gotta do is look up in the tree. Who else seen the leprechaun? Say yeah!
Eyewitnesses say the leprechaun only comes out at night. If you shine a light in its direction, it suddenly disappears. This amateur sketch resembles what many of you say the leprechaun looks like. Others find it hard to believe and have come up with their own theories and explanations for the image.
My theory is it's casting a shadow from the other limb.
Could be a crackhead that got hold to the wrong spot.
I like her
Get in
story,
the
dude.
tree and play a leprechaun.
We're going to get down to the bottom of that. Yeah, it's still on there, guy. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, man.
This guy helping to direct traffic says he's prepared for his encounter with the leprechaun. He's suited up from head to toe.
This wars off spells right here. This is a special leprechaun flute, which has been passed down from thousands of years ago from my great-grandfather who was Irish.
Hilarious.
I just came to help out.
Others just came to get lucky in hopes a pot of gold may be buried under this tree.
I'm gonna run a backhoe and uproot that tree. I want to know where to go. I want to go. Give me the go. I want to go.
This is Brian Johnson, NBC 15 News.
Oh,
Dude,
that's
that was
fun.
hilarious.
I just wish, like this is at the same time I became an adult. Like I wish I could have fucking been a part of some leprechaun hunting shit.
I love
Well, I
that they
got-
say an amateur sketch. Like they had to say amateur. 'Cause,
Right.
no, could have been professional.
You said that was in Alabama, right?
Well, they said Mobile. There might be another
Okay.
Mobile.
Well, my dad's side of the family is from this little tiny town in Alabama called Haleyville. And I mean, when I say little tiny, it's like 400 or 600 people or something like that. And my dad went back there for a family reunion. When he came back, he goes, "Oh my God, we are blood related to everybody in that town." And he said that, and I'm like, "Dad, who did they date?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "Who are they going out with? Everybody's blood related." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't really think of that before."
Yeah, no, my dad's family actually comes from Tennessee Snake Baptists. So we were actually
Wow.
the people that had the, he would do the snake shit in church.
Right.
That's where I get my wonderful personality.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. So what I want to talk to you guys about is Puma Punko. Are you guys familiar with this? Down in Bolivia, it's an old temple complex. Again, along with things, and this goes a little bit to our discussion earlier on if, these are technologies that have been lost or technologies. I'm not saying that people in that culture couldn't have done things, but there's certain things with the cutting of the rocks in Puma Punko that we have extremely difficult times doing now. And to a thing that Michael said earlier, the weight of some of these rocks that they're moving around, we would have a very difficult time doing that today. So many of the rocks are between 50 and some of them are more than 100 tons each. They come from a quarry that is 10 kilometers away. And to bring them to Puma Punko, it's a gradated uphill the entire way. So one of the things about this is that the whole area now is kind of a demolished megalithic structure that was built by the Aymaras. And no one really is clear on why they existed because it's difficult. The only thing they really have are the rocks, the stones from the actual buildings. They don't have a lot of other stuff from around them. One of the really interesting things that they found is that these rocks that fit together so extremely well. And if you want to throw one of the pictures up, I think it's like Puma Punko 1, Puma Punko 2, and then Puma Punko 3D.
Okay, so I did not see any labels. I've got 2 crosses, Jesus.
Okay, I know what you're talking about by the crosses. Okay, go ahead and put one of those up.
Okay.
One's a detail kind of the other one, so I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about.
Is this the one?
Yeah, so that is actually a stone where it is cut, and these stones can fit into one another. And if you look at the edges and the sides of these, it's like the cutting out, what would be used as the method to do this in the time period we believe this was done would be with hammers and chisels. And in order to get these type of sharp edges, we have a very difficult time cutting stone like this even now using diamond crusted blades and things. It's different if we're just cutting off a chunk of stone, but to get in and cut it perfectly and have everything be smooth, it's not even very feasible for us to do this now. We can, like in the last 20 years, we've been able to do things that are like this, but it's incredibly smooth. And a lot of these sections of these temples where they're put together, and this is the interesting thing, not all the rocks or not all the stones are the same size, and yet they can be fit together. And there are many places where you cannot fit a razor blade in between the rocks. The thing that makes it very interesting, one of the major challenges about this is, according to Dr. X.I. Branch, who's an archaeologist with UC Berkeley, he said the major challenge here is that the majority of the stones of Puma Punko are too large for us to reasonably move and get an idea if there's anything below them, because not only was the problem with building this temple up, is it was also destroyed at one time. And you're talking about stacks of rocks that are 50 to 100 tons. And even though it's a fairly active seismic area, the type of earthquake you need to knock over 100-ton rocks is so devastating to everything that it's not really feasible. And they also have, and I didn't put a picture into this, but they also have these sections in many of these stones where there's a cutout of like a capital I, where they would fit these stones together, and then this piece of metal would go in and it would lock everything together. And, the idea is, well, how did they, the small things that look like a capital I were quite evenly, done. Doesn't look like anything that could be done with a hammer. It's very hard for us to replicate. And much of the masonry there is characterized by accurately cut rectilinear blocks of such uniformity that they could be interchanged for one another while maintaining a level surface and even joints. And what's weird about it is, like I said, we're talking 50 to 100-pound boulders. It gets a lot into the whole, pyramid building thing, right? It's like either the ones in Latin America or the ones in Egypt, where you're talking about gigantic stones being moved 10 miles from this, or 10 kilometers uphill from this one area. Now, this area of Bolivia doesn't have a lot of trees, so there's none of this rolling log looking thing or anything like that that's possible for really moving these things. But the interesting thing is there's a ton of rocks, and I use that in a weird way, a ton of rocks. There's a lot of rocks that are between 5 and 50 tons that are andrite. And andrite comes from a different quarry, which is more like 90 kilometers away. So even though the stones weigh less, you're taking them 9 times the distance, you know? And so there's a lot of questions about this thing because so you transport them. First, you have to cut them out of the original rock. Then you transfer them. Then you have to cut all these perfect looking shapes with smooth edges on it. Then you've got to stack these things up to build these things. And then at some point, the entire thing gets destroyed. And so one of the old ancient alien theories is that aliens were maybe not involved with doing it, but were involved with like what Scott was saying earlier, like with coming up with some kind of sound wave technology to help move the rocks or that type of thing. And that they may have been the ones that actually destroyed the temple as well. So if you go, there is another picture that's it looks like a 3D picture. It's got like a blues and grays in it.
Tomb diagram. We'll try
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. So the guys at UC Berkeley took a bunch of the existing stones. Now, a lot of stones have been taken from this site, but most of the big stones are still left, right? Because nobody's driving over in their Honda Civic and picking up a 50-ton stone and taking it. So what they did is they put together this 3D rendering of what they think now, obviously they don't know this is the way the complex looked, but they think this is the way the complex looked.
So the blue is the missing, I'm guessing?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, so they pieced this thing together. And so what the archaeologist, I can't remember what they call him. I guess he's just an archaeologist. They created 3D representation of the way they think it looked. And what the one quote I read is, so we have a lot of problems kind of with this whole thing, right? So it's not only an engineering issue with the actual carving of these stones, but it's also the problem of moving 50 to 100 ton stones from a quarry uphill 10 kilometers away, and then the 5 to 40 ton things being moved from 90 kilometers away. And then assembling the entire structure. And then what on earth is it that destroyed the structure? Because like they said, seismic activity to destroy something like that with 100-ton stones is, and stones that are literally were fit together with joiners that you couldn't put, razor blades between. We see a lot of that stuff in Peru and things like that too, with a lot of the rocks they have there, the stone carvings they have there. But these are pretty intricately carved compared to what we see in Peru. Peru, there's some fantastic things of things put together. You can't slide a piece of paper between them and things like that. And they're all crazy different sizes of stones and things. But that to me, that's one of the things that it's like, did aliens do it? Did aliens assist in doing it? You've got guys that were carving things out of stone with like hammers and chisels that weren't anything like all the things you find that are statues and things like that in the area have zero kind of precision like this stuff. So along to what we were talking about earlier, maybe it predated these guys by a long shot, which is also possible.
Well, another thing to think of is like what is this, right? Is this like an office building? Is this just a statue? Like maybe there was a wooden building or a concrete building or a steel building that kind of surrounded this centerpiece. And this is the only shit left, right? Like a lot of the stuff we look at, we only see the rock, but like maybe there was other stuff around it. And this was just like a huge building with this like marble centerpiece.
Well, and they
like,
did.
What would this be used for?
Well, they did mention, well, they think it was a temple, but what they did mention is that, this is, I can't remember the exact date or what they think the date was, but it's like, I want to say it was like I can't remember the time frame. It was AD, but it was like in the first 1,000 years AD. And, since that time, for hundreds and hundreds of years, people have been taking stuff from there. We run into that here in Tombstone all the time. People will go into the mining district and find stuff and just walk away with it. And I'm a big fan of when hunting the paranormal, you leave everything where it is. You don't touch anything. You don't take anything.
Yeah.
But, when you get a place that's been there for
The
a couple thousand
limestone off
years.
the pyramids, like
Yeah.
the pyramids
Oh, yeah.
were covered in limestone, all gone.
Right. Exactly.
So Bruce, I have a couple of questions.
Um,
I think one of the things that, first of all, the insistence that everything is a temple, I think is, it's hard to justify that. I mean, everything from the pyramids to this is a temple. I'm not buying.
I was going to agree with you on that.
I'm not 100% behind that either. That's just what archaeologists at UC Berkeley call it.
But we think they're like a bunch of like hunter-gatherer just out of the woods, like dumbass people. And they're like, this is to their god. But this could have just been like in a shopping mall for all we know.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a couple more points. The next one is, we never really get to the why, right? We always take a shortcut and say it was a temple. But the level of effort necessary for a tribe or a population of people to undergo this engineering feat is tremendous.
Oh, it's dramatically huge.
You have to ask yourself, as Scott said, if they were hunter-gatherers, why would they allocate the resources to do this?
Exactly.
A tremendous amount of resources, because these are big rocks.
And if we just say it's not a temple, it's just a type of building, it really still leads to the same thing. Why would people with limited, people that are living out of, maybe, I know that in the countryside out here in Arizona, people used adobe, which was basically mud brick houses that what a lot of native tribes use, or wiki ups that were just, sticks put together with like a hide over the top to keep out rain and stuff. And it kind of leads to that thing. Why would people with limited engineering skills, or what we would say would probably be limited engineering skills, why would they make this unless, like we talked about it earlier, it was put together maybe quite a long time before these people came around?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Because like, you got to think about this. Even if this was a castle, this is kind of a shitty structure. Like they could have had a wooden roof on top of all of this, but this.
Well, they might have.
This seems much more like Elon Musk, like building his monument inside the Kmart's he owned or something.
I was just gonna say, could this just be a show of flex? Like people showing that they have, they can do this, they have that many slaves or whoever to do this, that they can build this thing?
Or like they got heavy equipment and money.
When you look at the environment in which this was built, it's a hostile environment. It's a high desert. I believe this is on the shores of Lake Titicaca. Is that correct?
Yes, the one quarry is on the other side of the lake. So they could have either dragged stones at one of the quarries, dragged the smaller stones around the lake, or possibly transported them across the lake using some type of boats, but they don't have any evidence of that at all.
But like Afghanistan is a vast desert, but when you look back to like biblical records, Afghanistan was like a flourishing forest back then. So
the difference between this and Afghanistan I believe, is the elevation. This is an extremely high arid.
It's really difficult to grow trees at that altitude.
Right. So
unless the water was higher.
well, Lake Titicaca is there, and so one of the theories that I'd like to posit is twice a year this planet goes through a massive debris field in space, not outer space, but space. What's to say that one of these space rocks didn't slam into Lake Titicaca, creating a tidal wave which knocked all of this down?
That's a theory.
Then I guess
That's interesting.
Maybe we need to stop arguing that these things were made by people, as we know people to be. That's 7,000 generations. Maybe there was a generation, thousands of generations of some other different type of humanoid that was substantially stronger. I don't know.
I don't know how much I buy into the whole fucking like carbon dating shit, and we've only been around like the evolution. I believe in like their evolutionary theory of humans coming out of Neanderthals as much as I believe in the biblical record. Like, who knows? Right?
I believe there are UFOs that would fly by Earth and go, I ain't stopping there. It's like she said, it's like it's a ghetto down there. Why would we go there? It'd be like driving through Compton 30 years ago.
Well, I mean,
For our gold, so they can rebuild their atmosphere.
the
Right.
ancient theory is that there's lost technology because there are massive gaps in our understanding of the history of the planet and the history of humanity.
Right.
Yeah, maybe we went through technology the wrong way, right? Like if you look at those Baghdad batteries, they had those for a reason. The Egyptians were able to gold coat shit, which only took electricity. We have those ancient computers. Like maybe we just have no idea how the hell these people were living.
Right.
I believe that part of that is, I think maybe Bruce or Debra pointed out, the arrogance that engulfs academia. Maybe we just simply can't believe that there were smart and capable people in the past, because that is so far into the past.
Well, it's kind of like if you look at things like the Piri Reis map, where, you know, as a Turkish captain, they had this map that clearly showed I almost sent that to you earlier too.
We
Clearly
brought that up on the
outline.
Giants episode. That one's fucking amazing.
Clearly shows the outline of Antarctica. And this is far before most people would ever consider anyone went across the ocean at all. And one of the theories behind that, actually in the original book, Chariots of the Gods by Daniken, he thought that knowledge of the shape of the opposite side of basically the world to everyone that was in Europe and in Africa was imparted to them by someone else. You know, they said, here's what this looks like over here for when you want to try and go over there, you'll be able to go, kind of thing. So interesting. If you can put up, there's a picture that's definitely got a crucifixion on it.
Okay, so we got Jesus coming up.
Yeah, put Jesus up first.
Jesus
and then
then
there's a detail of it. So this is a 1350 painting, and I'm sorry. Wait, which one is this? Let me see. Oh yeah. So
you have that sun and the moon in there. Do you want me to put that up first, or?
Well, I wanted everyone to get a look at this, the whole thing first. And, you know, and it's a very religious, obviously a painting of Jesus being crucified. And if you look at the top left and the top right, there are two very unusual things. And this was painted in 1350, and it hangs above an altar in Kosovo, Yugoslavia. Now go ahead and go to the other picture, which is a blow up of the two things in the corners, which I find to be very strange. And many other people have commented on these before.
Before we go, I would love to mention, normally anytime Jesus is depicted when the Catholic Church was born, he is either shrouded by a sun or he has sun rays.
Like a halo.
Yeah, like when he was born on December 25th, which is when the sun resurrects itself. So let's get to the next one. Damn, I didn't cut any of your photos. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so this is the detail from the left side and the top side of that painting. And it's really interesting because when you look back to the 1350s, why would anyone depict, I mean, they're obviously not trying to depict, you know, the standard thought of an angel or something like that. Why would people be inside something that looks like a craft or something of some type? This one's actually got kind of these star features on it that look a little bit like as if we had an Air Force plane that said USAF, but it has this same thing near the back of it that it's got near the front of it.
Yeah,
and
that's weird, dude. It's
just a strange, it's just a very strange thing to have in a religious painting, you know, and it's just a strange thing. It obviously looks like it's people sitting in something. They're obviously up in the sky. And the one on the right is definitely looking over his shoulder at the one on the left. And a lot of ancient alien guys have called this part of the painting the chased, which is the one is chasing the other one. And it kind of goes along the entire theory of that there's more than one alien civilization that has come here. And maybe some of them are nice to us, maybe some of us aren't, maybe some of them aren't nice to each other. We just don't know. I mean, we don't know anything about this, really.
That would make the most sense, though, right? That there is more than one, you know, race of aliens as well. I mean, gosh.
No, I've got this solved, dude. Look, this is Jesus. He's angry as hell. He's got his fist shaking. And this is Lucifer, the darkness, quivering, trying to get away.
Well, the thought, too, is both of them are holding their hands out in front of them like they're controlling something, although it doesn't really specifically show them controlling something. Both of them have at least one hand in front of them.
It is a weird ass drawing for sure. Like, why would you?
And it's from 1350. So, you know, there was no thought of, I mean, we didn't have thoughts of anything. We didn't even have, there were some pretty decent ships, but not, you know, spectacular ships. So to think about seeing things up in the sky, and, you know, one of the things I was thinking about before when we were talking about, I think maybe Michael had brought up something about India, but, you know, when they talk about the Vimanas, which were these supposed flying ships that it talks about fairly dramatically in ancient Indian history. It's, you know, ancient Indian history is one of the most extensive on the planet. There's just zillions of pages of a sacred text called the Vedas, and they talk about flying ships that would come down 6,000 years ago. So it's this painting would be done, 5,000 years after the East Indian civilization was saying that there were flying ships coming to the planet. So,
is it possible that these were added later?
That's a good question.
I've never read anything that asserts that. I've read things that they assert all kinds of things, like different maybe biblical meanings for it and things like that, but not that they were added.
Can't they test like paint for like, when they're checking if something's authentic or not, can't be told.
Absolutely.
There's a difference in the paint, the age of the paint on the painting.
Yeah.
Interesting to know because, there's a cathedral somewhere in Europe and a gargoyle is actually fashioned out of a astronaut. And people want to believe, oh, well, that is evidence of ancient astronauts, when in fact, the gargoyle was recently added. So it's not that at all. So I was just wondering if there's a possibility that somebody has looked into that as an answer.
I haven't heard anybody say that about these, but that doesn't mean that doesn't exist either.
It looks, I mean, I don't know, because we can't really zoom in a lot on this.
They're experts.
Well, I try to look for that kind of shit, right? Like, was it added? And God knows at this point.
Well,
we got AI art and shit. Like,
well, these days, I mean, and I'm sure Michael is extremely familiar with this too, being a photographer. But I spent a long time working with Photoshop, and you would be shocked at what you could do with Photoshop. I mean, you could take your little kid picking roses in a garden, outside your house and make her look like she's on the beach in Maui. And if you're decent with it, it would be extraordinarily difficult to tell. If you go down to the pixel level and you do it by pixels, you can do a lot of stuff with Photoshop. It's amazing.
Well, even
like
worse
you said,
than that,
AI.
Worse
AI
than that, like we have his story, right? And how many times was the Bible canon?
You're against feminism.
I am 100. Deborah's against feminism. We are like,
Whoa.
Well, it's not his story, it's her story.
Their
Right?
story.
That's right.
Their story. But what I'm getting at is, like, how many times was the Bible recanonized, right? Like,
right.
We've switched all these things, but by the 1300s, like 1300, when they were doing all these, the paintings and the stained glass and shit, there was like a lot of mushroom art. Like I said before, there was a lot of Jesus with the sun rays and the sun around his head, which is, very close to pagan tradition. We're going to do a Christmas show. You guys will be there for that. And like Christmas from Saturnalia and Yule and all this other shit, like there's a lot of connections. So how much did this shit change?
Well, I'm
Right.
thinking even recent times, like just even recent times, there's statues coming down as history. But then for whatever political agenda or whatever agenda is going on, they're pulling down those statues and they're renaming buildings and they're kind of rewriting history. So you're right. Like history is just some one perception that we're seeing. We don't, like, who knows the actual facts, right? It's just been retold and told, and who knows what's been erased and thrown away and,
1,700 years ago? Oh, well, I guess that would have only been 700 years ago, but a lot of
And actually there was
700 years.
Yeah.
There was a painting that I almost included that I didn't, because I knew we'd be running overtime, because that's what always happens. But there's a painting called the Madonna with Saint Giovanni, and it was painted in the 15th century by Domenica Ghirlandaio. And it was it hangs as part of the Loser collection in Palazzo Vecchio. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it's a pretty famous picture. Above Mary's right shoulder in picture, there is definitely a disc-shaped object that looks like it's got beams of light coming out of it. And even in the painting, which is really a picture of the Madonna with Saint Giovannino, even in that painting, it's off to the side. And in the painting, there's a guy standing with his dog looking up and pointing up. I think that's it. Yeah. If you can zoom in on that, look to the right of her head.
I can't zoom in. Hold up. Give me a second. I'll figure
God,
out how to
it's
work
like little
the
Easter
internet.
eggs like they put in movies now where they
There
put
we
little
go.
clues and stuff.
Nope.
That's crazy.
Right, right.
Okay, I just clicked on a bunch of links. That's not good.
But you can see from where you're looking at it, there's obviously something up in the air that where that thing is not right to be in a 1400s painting of the Virgin Mary. And there is literally a guy with his dog on the ground looking up and using his hand and like shielding, and the dog is looking up. And it's just such a weird thing. And, you know, again, there's like the possible religious interpretations and things. And but it's just a very strange thing to see.
That is wild. Yeah, that's cool.
Well, like when you think of the angels, though, they were like these fucking rings of eyeballs and all sorts of weird shit too. So like,
Yeah, like really, when you hear about the term angel, the way the Bible really describes angels, you wouldn't want to meet one. I mean, they're really terrifying.
we did an episode on, oh God, exorcism. You remember the exorcism episode, Deborah?
Yeah.
And like when you saw the Christian exorcisms, you were like, give me a fucking break, dude. But then like I pulled up a bunch of videos of like Muslim exorcisms, and they're way more devout than us in America here. They had like tens of thousands of people where they were exercising 1,000 people at once, and people were just like into that shit, dude.
Wow.
It was fucking crazy.
You're like, mushrooms for everybody.
Yeah, that's what they should have been like, but
yeah.
It's nuts.
So that's it. That's the only ones I brought.
That was awesome. That was amazing.
I think that's the best evidence is in things like that, like just little, carved in stone. Suddenly there'll be an alien looking being or a ship or that in a piece of art where it makes no sense. And it's, I think that's really compelling to me.
There's a lot of weird cave paintings like that too, from all over the world, where you'll look and they have the normal cave painting things. It's like, there's a deer, there's a bird. And then there's this dude that looks like, he's wearing a space helmet and he just looks nothing like anything else. And you're like, if you're painting on the walls what you're seeing, what was this guy looking at?
Well, yeah, no, I get that, because their paintings aren't very good either. Like,
right. Yeah, we've got that in the area that I live in. We have petroglyphs in the area, and it's very obvious when you're looking at petroglyphs what you're looking at. Like when it's a deer, it pretty much looks like a deer. But then there's all kinds of weird things. We had a guy at our Paracon last year that had this presentation called Petroglyphs in the Sky, and certain petroglyphs, from talking to all these native medicine men from different tribes, they came to the conclusion that these circular petroglyphs were areas where they would see the sky people from. So it's pretty interesting.
So Bruce, do you have the privilege in your area of the world to actually see the sky? One of the things.
Tucson for sure, right?
Dude, I'm in Tombstone. I get like some of the bluest skies you've ever seen. Like, it's incredible. Right now, it's kind of half monsoony. We get some storms that roll in here that'll drop like 2 inches of rain in an hour on occasion. And of course, everything's blocked out then. But we have some of the most spectacular star fields at night and the bluest of blue skies during the day.
Yeah, because if you think about it, we've lost so much of that. Many people don't even know what that looks like. That magic is gone for a lot of people.
I was gone for me when I lived in LA. I can tell you that a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time.
You know what's crazy is like when you drive across the country and you're out in the middle of nowhere, you still can't really fucking see it. But my wife and I, we lived out in the onion fields, like 7 miles away from Lancaster. Not that far, just 7 miles away. And, we'd be up drinking beers and you'd look at the sky and there were millions of fucking stars.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the difference is. Like, if you're driving across country, you can be hundreds of miles away from stars and barely see shit. But like, for whatever reason, when we were in that onion field, we just saw all sorts of shit out there.
Are you sure it wasn't a mushroom field, Scott?
I wish. Ain't no mushrooms in Lancaster.
No.
A bunch of dead grass.
Well, I was raised on a farm in the prairies. So Alberta, my province, and Saskatchewan are beautiful skies, wide open, like amazing skies. So that's a big thing for me. I don't know if I could even live in I probably could, but I would really miss like LA or something like that. I don't know if I could even do that really. Like, seeing the sky is important to me.
So
is it me? Is it me, or did she suddenly become very dark?
Well, it's getting dark here.
Oh, I'm like, wow, it seems like it got really dark there for a minute.
I'm about to see all the stars.
I'm like, wow, I'm older than I thought. My vision is shot.
I should have left. I should have been like, no, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, right.
So
Scott, you were gonna follow up the ass end here, which really was kind of an unfortunate way to put that, but
no, that's my role in this. Eventually, you guys will all run the show, and I'll just be the producer.
Oh, I see.
Who makes funnies? Do you still see the stars, Deborah?
Well, I do. So I do live I live in a city, but it's only about 100,000 people. And from my yard, when I bought this house, I particularly found a spot where I do see the sky. It's really important to me.
We can see the Milky Way. We can see the Milky Way really easily down here. I mean, it's just plastered. It's a big sky gazing center down here. Because I live in a county you were talking about, you live in a town with how many people? 100,000?
100,000. It's just a small city.
That's slightly smaller than our entire county, and our county is 2,000 square miles bigger than Los Angeles County. And we've only got 130,000 people in the entire county. I mean, there's no noise pollution here at all. At all.
Well, where I was born, there's probably, I don't even know, 1,000 people. Like, it's tiny farming community. So yeah. And on a farm, it's wide open skies. Like, because it's not even heavily treed or hilled, it's prairies. Right. So I mean,
so Tombstone's like 1,200, 1,300 people.
Yeah.
So it's like that kind of, yeah.
Well,
all right, Scott.
Shit in Utah. So
really?
No,
what do you think?
No,
well, I'll tell you what, when you're in the north rim of the Grand Canyon, you sure can. Yeah, north rim of the Grand Canyon is good for sky watching.
There are millions of people here now. I think they lie to us about the population, to be honest. Okay, so first up, I love the Library of Congress. And we're going to look and see what the government's lying to us about. That's half of our show, by the way. We didn't tell you guys that from the beginning. But, so we're going to...
They're lying about Maui.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to skip through some of these. This one has... Project Blue Book, we're definitely going into that. The Home Nugget. Where the hell is the Home Nugget? What year are we looking at? 1962.
I just have to interrupt you, Scott. We have a viewer who is a fan of your glasses. She says you look real cute in them.
Is that my wife?
It is.
Yeah, I can't be on the God damn it, do I not have this one? The Home Nugget, Project Blue Beam. Here we go. I'm sorry, guys. Try and do two things at once here. So I just wanted to bring up the the actual newspaper clipping. So this is the first part of our government lying to us. So spacecraft from planets, Washington. They might have been birds, balloons, hoaxes, or unusual skylights, but not spacecraft from other planets. And by the way, this was printed February 7th, 1962. That is the word from the Air Force today. After 15 years investigating flyer saucer reports, it said there was no evidence that any of the 7,369, keep that number in mind when we go lower down the list, any of the 7,369 unidentified flying objects checked on were spaceships swooping in from distant planets. To date, no identified flying objects, UFOs, has been given any indication of threat to the national security. The Air Force concluded in summing up its investigations from 1947 through the last year. It said its Project Blue Book, which we know a fuckload about now that we didn't know back then, has turned up no evidence that any of the unidentified sightings represented technological advances beyond the range of our present day scientific knowledge. And this gets back to like the ignorance we feel today on other fucking like if something came.
When you started out with saying that they said, oh, they could be birds or weather balloons or this, and it's like, then they're talking about whether it's advanced technology, and it's like a minute ago they were birds and weather balloons.
Well, in 1962, we were the shit, dude. We were the best.
Right.
We defeated the Nazis 20 years ago. Everyone can kiss our ass.
Right.
But or that any UFOs were extraterrestrial vehicles under intelligent control. During 1961, the Air Force Office of Aerial Phenomenon, which we'll come to later, probed into 488 UFO reports. I got to keep bringing that back up. This is 1962, and there were 488 UFO reports. 26 fewer than the year before. So this is when it started dying off. At year's end, only 10 of the 1,961 sightings still were classified as unidentified. Most of the rest were traced to aircraft, balloons, satellites, astronomical phenomena, birds, lights, hoaxes, and other causes. But there were still 10. And I'm the skeptic, so that's a big number for me. They should have been able to shut that shit down.
I'm sure they tried.
Oh, they tried. We're going deeper here. Let me find the next one. Okay, here we go. Mystery object. Let me see what the August 27th. Nope, that's not the. Okay, let's go to the next one. No, there should be an August 27th one. It's August 28th, June, March. Oh, that's way down. Shit, now my stuff's all fucked up. Hold on 1 second. Oh, that's not what I named it. Never mind. Today is August 27th for all the people listening Okay, so we are going to the Evening Star, June 17th, 1959. Not part one. We need to do that. So this is the newspaper article. Part one. Okay, so this is a mystery object missed by radar. So it's Las Vegas, June 17th, 1959. An unidentified flying object visible to the naked eye, but not to radar, streaked across the Nevada skies last night. It was the third mysterious sighting in the Las Vegas area in 3 weeks. The sheriff's sergeant, control tower crewman at McCarran Field, and Air Force men were among those who reported seeing a bright object flash down towards the desert northwest of Las Vegas at 10:55 p.m. The Air Force radar installation at Angels Peak, 30 miles northwest of Las Vegas, wasn't able to track it. The Air Force said none of the objects sighted could have been planes. So, like, what do you guys think of this kind of shit printed back then?
Well, if you look at the reports on Roswell, they were completely different at first. And then the military came in and suddenly the story completely changed. So, you know, anytime you read something in a paper, regardless of the time period, because there was a Roswell type event in the late 40s or the mid to late 40s as well. And I can't remember what that was called, but once it just depends on, when people get information out. Because if you read about Roswell from the paper, like the day after Roswell, the story is massively different than if you read about it a month later. It's a completely different story.
Well, the Battle of LA too. I tried to search through the advanced settings in the Library of Congress, not Alexandria, but
right.
I could not find the Battle of LA. But I've seen other like YouTube channels bring up information on
Oh
it.
yeah, absolutely.
So maybe I have to go to like the Internet Archive to dig that shit up. Like I know they do hide a lot of this shit. But it is weird that, some of the shit is documented. And there are hundreds of people in every town that see it.
Well, a really good example of that is they had a thing here a few years ago called the Phoenix Lights. And it wasn't just a few people that saw it. It was like 200,000 people or something. Yeah, and the governor and everything. The governor's like, I want to know what that was. And of course they never really had anything for it, supposedly.
No, they just kind of pushed the shit under the radar, kind of like they're doing now, even back then, which is like, is this some sort of Project Blue Book, Blue Beam? Like, what the hell is going on with all this stuff?
Right.
So the next one I'm bringing up, this is just a picture before I get into the next show. Picture. So this was 1959. This was straight out of the newspaper. And it was in, like, that's the funny thing about this picture, is this picture was in an article. Like I got another article from before this, but they were arguing about flying saucers and floppy pizza in the same fucking article. So Yeah, really weird fucking article. If you want to find that shit out. Let me make sure this is the right one. November 3rd. Okay, so this goes on to talk about an actual board of physicists and other government officials that started a group 1956. Well, this was 3 years after the group was founded. Evening Star, yeah. Where they were discussing all of this shit. They were actually like fucking investigating it. So we've got board named to probe flying saucer reports. A 9-man board of governors, including a nuclear physicist, a radio television commentator, and 2 ministers, was named here yesterday to head an investigation by interested parties of aerial phenomena, including the possible existence of flying saucers. At the organizational meeting at 1536 Connecticut Avenue, NW, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, temporarily headed by T. Townsend Brown, a British expert on cosmic radiation, determined to the government and the public. The membership stressed it is not just a group of science fiction fans. We go beyond that, one member said. In launching the investigation, Mr. Brown declared, nothing, whatever is considered at this time on the saucer and space subject, save that there does exist more than enough evidence of certain and obvious aerial phenomena to justify independent evaluation. And this is like 1956, right? Like,
I love when it says certain and obvious, certain and obvious information available.
I mean, that one goes on, and that's the thing I hate about like giving this shit some credence is normally the Library of Congress. I've tried to look up every fucking cryptid and Bigfoot and every other thing under the sun in the Library of Congress to get like one fucking story, and they
don't talk about it.
Do not give it to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, but I mean, we'll jump in. We'll end it soon. I'll skip through some of these, but the Tabor City. Okay, so after looking through all of the Library of Congress for unidentified objects, the first stories came. Like, when do you guys think the first stories came?
Oh,
this goes back to the 1700s. When do you think the first stories came?
I would bet the 1700s.
No, you're way off.
No. I mean, we were just looking at a painting from 14 something that had, strange flying ships in it. So I'm figuring 1700 seems like 300 years late to me.
So, like, when we were testing the nuclear bombs in the 40s, that's like when the first major sightings were like publicly released.
That's when the first pre-Roswell thing happened, was in the 40s, I think.
And I don't know if they just like scrubbed it from the records or they just didn't write about it. But the first UFO story in the Library of Congress happened in 1952. And from 1952 to 1953, there were only 4 articles written. And then by 1954, the shit exploded, dude. There were like hundreds. You can search through thousands of articles from like 1954 through like, I think it ends in 73 or whatever. But let me pull up the first one from 1952 here. Sorry, I didn't print these out, so I'm...
So what do you think? Do you think it's because the way back there was only, you know, one news source, people didn't interact and talk to each other as much? So more recently, then you get news sources that are competing with each other, so it becomes, you know, explodes, right? Everybody's trying to get the scoop and get the story and keep it growing. So there's a little bit of that, right? Just the history of journalism itself.
For sure, especially since like the Frogman thing, it was, or the Giants was the best example. Was like there was this one person that wrote about it, and then like you could see month by month how all these other news organizations took that story and fucking like expanded on that story, dude. It's kind of fun.
Scott's got a thing about the Frogmen.
Yeah, they don't
Scott's always
exist.
talking about the Frogmen.
They do not exist. Our co-host was like 100% dead set that like there was a million articles about frogmen. And then like all 3 of us talked about 2 articles for an hour. And it was pretty hard.
You know, though, that's going to be the one you're going to stumble upon because you keep saying that.
I
It's
hope
coming
you're
for
right.
you.
I hope you're right. That was like when we were researching like heavy too, though. Like we would start like the week before and shit. And like, yeah.
And the only photo was like a cartoon is pretty much like that leprechaun picture. It was ridiculous. It was good.
But every paranormal podcast does a video on that frogman because that shit definitely exists. Okay, so let me finish this off. The 1952 one, I couldn't get it to read, but this was the first out of the Library of Congress that this was the first newspaper article about unidentified flying objects. And this basically goes into like them hovering atop Michigan and atop of the White House. But as you can see, like that shit not very good.
And what's the date on that?
This one is December 3rd. Nope. Yeah, I guess it would be, yeah, December 30th, 1952.
Yeah, I'm looking at an article right now online from the Fall River Herald News, July 29th, 1952. Where jets were told to shoot down flying discs, Air Force puzzled but no longer skeptical, it says.
See, and that's the thing, right? Like I'm looking straight from the Library of Congress website. So like, is that a real article? I don't know. Are they giving us the full truth? I don't know. I do know that they were skeptical as fuck until about the 1959 period, where like a lot of these articles that I skipped over was talking about the Air Force just telling you, no, it's nothing. They're weather balloons. They're birds. So like, who knows, right? His story.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But this was the first one I could read. So we'll finish it off with the Tabor City Tribune, February 18th, 1953. So this is not too far after that. 1953. There we go. So this is the actual newspaper article. And, oop, I got a cut. So this one's kind of interesting. So this is More Saucers Seen by Fenton Miller. Arthur Mallow on Route 4. Loris is a second Horry County man to report mysterious object hovering over his farm. And this one gets into some kind of like UFO tropes of like the 70s and 80s. Within 14 hours after he sighted the object, he found one of his cows dead from an unknown cause on the spot which the object hovered. In Loris and elsewhere in the county and adjoining counties, numerous people during the last week have reported sightings, unfamiliar lights, objects passing through the sky. Marlowe, who lives 2 miles south of Highway 9 on the old Whitville-Conway Road, states that he was awakened at approximately 30 minutes after midnight on Saturday morning, February 14th, by barking of his dogs and braying of his horse. After throwing on his clothes, he looked out the window and saw so much light that he thought his barn was on fire. When he got outside, he discovered that the light was coming from an object about 70 feet above the ground and about 100 yards beyond his barn. He was able to make out 3 cylindrical beams of light coming from the object. One from what appeared to him to be the front, and the third from the rear of the object. The light was so bright, he said that he could have read fine print where he was standing approximately 100 yards from it. So although he had his gun with him and three times started to shoot at the object, he decided not to, in hopes that the object might settle to the ground if it did land. So like, I mean, that shit goes on, but
right.
Like this is the second article out of all of the articles on the Library of Congress.
Which is weird. I just was looking through, when you were mentioning articles like that, I was looking just online and stuff, and there's an article from 1897 with a crash in Aurora, Texas.
I wish, I'm sure you could find some of this shit in the Library of Congress, but I specifically typed in, I did the age parameter till 56 when I got a ton of fucking articles, but the first one I saw for unidentified flying object was that 1952 one.
Yeah.
Which when was Benny and Barney Hill? That was probably after that, right?
Yeah, I think it was 60s.
Yeah. But the 40s, there was supposed to be a lot of shit going on. So
right.
I don't know.
Cool though.
Well, clearly, since the beginning of time, it's been recorded. Cave walls, newspapers.
And this podcast.
And this podcast.
You know what's going to happen? This thing's going to stream out into outer space, and some aliens are going to be watching it, go, man, we got these guys fooled. Fooled, I tell you. These guys, they'll make perfect workers for us.
Listen to these idiots.
Yeah, these guys will make fine workers for our gold fields.
Or maybe they're shaking in their boots because we're on to them and they're sending the men in black or whatever to come, the alien version.
They're like, we cannot mix our DNA with these people. No way. It'll destroy everything we worked for centuries to create.
So now that we've solved the alien secret, what do you guys think?
They exist.
They do, 100%.
I'll put it this way. I'll go the easy way. Alien life definitely exists.
Michael, I think you're muted. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I think it's statistically impossible for it not to.
So I'm the only one that doesn't believe. This is a
Do you not believe in
simulation.
alien life, though? I mean, there's a difference between alien life and guys that fly here. Because if you believe in the possibility of alien life, there has to be hundreds of thousands of planets out there that have developed civilizations of whatever kind they are. They could be reptilian or what we would call reptilian or whatever. You know, there's, if you just think that we're the end, I hate to say this, but if we're the end all be all of life in the galaxy, this galaxy is in serious fucking trouble.
Well, I have to stay true to the story. The Earth is flat. Birds aren't real. This is a simulation, and I'm sticking with that until after September 5th.
So then the question is, are the simulations of UFOs real?
Yeah, as real as we are.
Well, there you go. It's perfect.
Good question.
But what are we doing
all
next
someone's
week?
AI project.
We're gonna try to do it like it's a bracket next week, right?
Oh, is it? So is it a bracket next week? Because
I think it's the 4th month. What are we looking at?
Now, what's a bracket?
Oh, it's gonna be so much fun. We're going to vote down not the best horror movie. That's happening in, what do you want the bracket to be on, Debra?
Oh, you're putting this on me? Gosh.
I'm putting it on you for a second, and I will be right back. You think?
I don't know, but I do have an paranormal investigating team that are willing to join us next week. So that'll be fun to hear some of their stories. So with the brackets, we have a list of things that so it can be, what have we done? Like the best horror movies, and we just say which one we like. No rhyme or reason. It can be monsters. No rhyme or reason.
Right.
If you just like the guy's name or his curly hair, or you think he's the most horrific or whatever, you vote. And then at the end, it just keeps going down until one's, top winner or whatever. It's just a good time. Yeah. So we have a couple more people on, because just you need the numbers to do it. And it's just a good time. It takes a little bit longer than normal. I know tonight we're heading into bracket hours. This is a long one tonight too, but yeah. It's a good time.
So I'll tell you what, on the 17th of next month, which is a Sunday, and I will see if I can connect from where I'm going to be at, but I'm going to be way far away. I'm going on a cruise of the Greek islands. So
that'll be dope.
We do have internet on the ship. And so I think I'll be able to join from there, which would be kind of cool. But just want to let you guys know, the day I come back is also a Sunday. I'm not so sure about the day I come back, which is the 24th, I think. It depends what time my flight gets in. But I'll let you guys know when we get closer. But I'm going to try and connect from the Greek islands. So I think that would be pretty cool.
Cool.
I can find out about the ghosts of Greece.
Or
maybe Hercules Trials or something.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Bruce, I'm on the same cruise. I don't know if we're going to be the same date. Are you going on NCL?
I'm going on Royal Caribbean.
Okay.
What?
And I'm going I'm going on a 10-day thing, goes to all the islands, and yeah, no, it's going to be cool.
This might be a problem. Deborah, have you ever been on a cruise?
I've not been on a cruise.
Okay, thank God. Because fucking Jeremy was always talking about cruises too. What the fuck?
Well, I've been on a cruise before, but I've never not to anywhere spectacular. And I hate to say this because she's up in Canada, but I've been on a cruise where my parents were having a 50th anniversary. They were cruising to Alaska, and my family went with them up to Victoria, and then they cruised the rest of the way up. And I've been on a 3-day cruise down to Mexico, but that was just a complete bar crawl. Make it from one bar on the ship to another bar. And then we all went to this place called Husong's Cantina in Ensenada, Mexico. So it was a drunken fiesta is what it was.
You crazy cruise people.
I did the New York City to Nova Scotia cruise, which was fabulous. Nova Scotia is an amazing place.
Yeah, the East Coast is beautiful. Yeah.
There's a flow rider. There's a flow rider on the one we're going where you can surf on the ship, which I am excited to do because I used to surf. So I might actually look like I know what I'm doing.
Lucky ducks.
Or I will fall and break an arm because I'm 60 years old,
Just make sure you get that shit on the podcast.
Right?
Dude,
yeah, we want
if
some
I could
footage.
get video of me breaking a bone, that would be fantastic.
That's what
I'll be like, a ghost broke my leg. They'll be like, no, it wasn't a ghost. It was you falling on the flow rider.
Yeah, whenever I do these interviews, I'm hoping one day somebody will just beat my ass for no reason, because that shit will go viral.
No, we don't want that. That's terrible.
Absolutely, we do.
I could get you to come and interview some old cowboy guys in Tombstone. We could probably make that happen if you wanted.
Well, I could make it happen, but I'm trying to get the natural thing of it. There's enough people twacked out on what do they call it now? The Fetty with Frank. What do they call that?
Math.
Spice, I think.
So what are we doing? You were supposed to come up with the answer to this, Deborah.
Oh, well, I have no answer. I don't know.
She was, and then we started talking shit about stuff.
We were supposed to have and you have to tell me when is the lady that's in Ireland coming on?
Well, I don't know. She talks to you more than me.
Well,
she pushed back, right?
And no, after your people, I think.
Well, so that investigating team, they can come on next week. So on Sunday. So we can either have one where we have investigating teams come on and just share. If we found a different investigating team, we could just ask some questions and hear about their experiences, and then, or we can do a bracket and see if they are interested and able to do a bracket with us.
I didn't even realize. I thought it was the week after. So next week, everybody, we are having. Deborah's going to tell you.
Spectral paranormal investigators. They're joining us to share some of their investigating stories. So it's kind of cool. And possibly if we could find another team or another somebody who's into that, that'd be kind of cool to have a couple of them on it.
Spectral paranormal.
Do either of you know any paranormal investigators, or am I?
I know a ton of investigators, but I don't know if I know any spectral investigators.
No,
I know a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be whatever type of. That's just the name of the team that I invited on. But yeah,
okay.
If you had and they do investigations on site and whatever. So if you know anybody that does sort of the same thing, yeah, we can have a couple different teams on and let them share their experiences. I always love hearing about
I'll look and see stuff. Because because of the fact we just did a Paracon a couple months ago, I have a ton of teams information. And some of them are fairly well-known teams, but they'd be harder to get on a podcast, you know, but I've had guys like Greg Lawson and Shane Pittman and Rick McAuliffe that played, he's from the Hollywood Ghost Hunters, played Jason in a couple, or did the stunt work for Jason in a couple of the movies. And so there, and you know, we've got a Native American team that I know of that's pretty good. We've got a hometown team here in Tombstone called Goose Flats Paranormal, and they might be available. I'll send you guys some stuff and see if you think any of it looks okay. And if it does, I'll try and get a hold of them.
Well, find one of them. You need to send us your personal Facebook, and then we'll all be in our group chat. And then, like, I don't know, by Wednesday, if we can't find a second, I'll make it happen, Captain.
Okay. Yeah, because my Facebook that I grabbed you through is the Paracon page Facebook.
Yeah, I can't do the
Messenger.
like
You
business
need
business
for Messenger.
Gotcha.
So just at Michael, Debra, and I, and we will all or not at friend, and then we'll get together on that. But you want to roll us
and you
out?
have everyone's first and last names for me, and I'll add those all in from my personal account.
I will. Everybody send those to me, and I will copy and paste and put it in the old message.
He'll do all the hard work.
I'm not exactly sure how to spell my own Facebook right now, to be honest with you. It's not my real name.